Stop everything you are doing right now, take a deep breath, and prepare yourself, because we are about to step into a world where love is not just a gentle feeling, but an all-consuming, destructive, beautiful, and terrifying force. If you have ever loved someone so deeply that every single heartbeat felt like a gamble with your own soul, if you have ever watched a single, innocent white lie snowball into an unstoppable, towering avalanche of heartbreak that threatens to bury everything you hold dear, then you already know the intoxicating, soul-crushing, sleepless night weight of Adını Feriha Koydum. Today, we are not just looking back at a television show or a nostalgic piece of media history. We are reopening a wound that never truly healed. We are ripping the bandages off decades of television memories to dissect the single greatest, most explosive formula in the entire history of drama, a universe built on impossible class divides, suffocating family tyranny, ruthless high society snobbery, and a level of passion, agony, and pure, unadulterated drama that has never been matched, and will likely never be replicated again. If you think you know pain, if you think you know what it means to fight the entire world for a single glance from the person who owns your soul, stay with me until the very last second. Because what we are about to unpack about Emir Sarafoglu and Feriha Yilmaz will change the way you look at love, sacrifice, and human endurance forever. Let's dive straight into the fire. To truly understand why Adını Feriha Koydum became a global obsession that still haunts millions of devoted fans across Latin America, the Middle East, Spain, and every corner of the globe, we have to first look at the sheer, brutal architecture of the divide that birthed this impossible romance. Imagine two distinct universes, separated by nothing more than a few flights of concrete stairs, yet worlds apart in wealth, privilege, and human value. Down in the basement, hidden beneath the glittering surface of an ultra-luxury apartment building in one of Istanbul's most elite neighborhoods, lived Feriha Yilmaz. Feriha's reality was carved out of concrete walls, quiet tears, and ironclad, unyielding rules. Her parents didn't live in the building, they served it. Her father, Riza, a traditional, proud, and deeply protective man carrying the heavy burden of rural traditions, and her mother, Zara, a woman who wore the exhaustion of the world on her shoulders, lived in constant, paralyzing terror. They knew the predatory, unforgiving streets of Istanbul could swallow a brilliant, beautiful young woman whole if she wasn't careful. Feriha was a girl caught in the crossfire of a brutal civil war within her own identity. On one hand, she was an academic powerhouse, a genius destined for a prestigious university scholarship, a young woman whose mind was her only ticket to freedom. On the other hand, she was the invisible caretaker's daughter, the girl who scrubbed floors, carried heavy grocery bags, and endured the muffled whispers and condescending glances of the wealthy residents living just upstairs. She was forced to wear her invisibility like a second skin, hiding her intelligence, hiding her beauty, and hiding her burning ambition beneath the shadow of her family's low social standing. And then, right above her head, occupying the glittering, sun-drenched penthouse and walking the marble floors of high society, lived Emir Sarafoglu. Emir wasn't just wealthy, he was the golden boy, the untouchable prince of Istanbul's reckless, fast-paced nightlife, a charismatic, magnetic vortex of charm, effortless privilege, and profound, hidden emotional loneliness. To the outside world, Emir had it all: money that never ran out, power that opened every door, fast cars, adoring crowds, and the kind of absolute immunity that only a legendary family name could buy. He could have any woman he wanted, walk into any club without waiting, and live a life completely untouched by consequence. But beneath that dazzling, golden exterior lay a young man who was starving. He was starving for something genuine, something real, something that couldn't be bought with his father's fortune. Emir was surrounded by crowds every single night, yet he was utterly, painfully alone, trapped in a superficial world where everyone wanted a piece of his status, but no one actually saw him. When fate finally intervened and Feriha stepped out of that suffocating basement and onto the vibrant, intimidating campus of her new university, it was nothing short of a match dropped into a powder keg. The explosion was inevitable. But here is where the tragedy takes its first, heartbreaking breath. Feriha was utterly terrified of her own reality. She was crippled by the fear of being judged, humiliated, and instantly cast out by a world that values a person only by the price tag on their clothes and the address of their home. Ashamed of her poverty and desperate to feel, just for a few fleeting hours, like she belonged somewhere, she committed a fatal, beautiful, terrifying mistake, a mistake that would alter the course of her entire existence. She let Emir believe she was a wealthy, high-society girl. She let him step into a fabricated fairy tale, painting herself in colors of luxury and privilege she did not own, simply because the thought of him looking at her with pity or disgust was a pain too deep to survive. What transformed this premise from a standard television plot into an absolute, untouchable global phenomenon was not just the writing, it was the pure, lightning in a bottle, heart-stopping on-screen chemistry between Çağatay Ulusoy and Hazal Kaya. From the very first moment their eyes locked across a crowded room, you could feel the air leave the atmosphere. Emir and Feriha didn't just speak to each other with words, their eyes communicated a complex, devastating language of silent agony, unspoken longings, and electric, undeniable desire. Every single time Emir looked at Feriha, time itself seemed to grind to a halt. His fierce, almost animalistic protectiveness clashed magnificently with her fierce, unyielding independence. Çağatay Ulusoy portrayed Emir not as a cliché, arrogant rich playboy, but as a man completely, utterly dismantled by love. When Emir fell, he fell without a safety net, without a parachute, crashing straight into the depths of his feelings. His obsession, not just with Feriha, but with figuring out who she truly was beneath all the layers, the defenses, and the mounting mountain of deceptions, became the roaring, beating heart of the entire series. And on the other side, Hazal Kaya delivered an absolute masterclass in emotional vulnerability and quiet suffering. As Feriha, she broke hearts across continents. You could literally feel the physical weight of her lies crushing her chest in every single scene. Every time she smiled at Emir, every time she laughed at his jokes, her eyes carried the terrifying, suffocating knowledge that the house of cards she had built could collapse at any second, destroying them both. It was this constant, razor-thin tightrope walk between absolute, euphoric bliss and total, catastrophic devastation that kept millions of viewers glued to their screens, weeping into their pillows, gripping their seats, and screaming at the television through episode after agonizing episode. Because if love was the spark that started the fire, the lies were barrels of high-octane gasoline, and the surrounding characters in this twisted universe were more than willing to keep throwing matches into the blaze. What started as a desperate attempt to bridge an impossible social gap quickly mutated into a monstrous, living, breathing web of dark secrets. Every single time Feriha gathered the courage to tell the truth, every single time she stood on the edge of confession, a new, catastrophic crisis emerged to yank the rug out from under her feet. Enter Cansu, a character study in obsessive jealousy, deep-seated psychological instability, and toxic entitlement. Cansu's presence injected a layer of psychological thriller-level tension into the narrative, turning the luxurious apartment building into a pressure cooker of paranoia. Cansu didn't just want what Feriha had, she wanted to dismantle Feriha's existence piece by piece, watching her squirm with a chilling, calculated delight. Add to that the crushing, suffocating pressure of Feriha's traditional, honor-bound background, where her father Riza's strict code and her brother Mehmet's explosive temper meant that a single whisper of scandal could lead to literal violence and family destruction, and you have a recipe for non-stop, heart-stopping terror. And then, inevitably, the day of reckoning arrived. When the truth finally came crashing down, it didn't just hurt, it detonated like a bomb. The betrayal that Emir felt wasn't merely about social class. It wasn't just about the fact that the girl he loved wasn't rich. The true agony, the deep, bleeding wound in Emir's chest, was the realization that the woman he had bared his soul to, the woman he had trusted with every fragile piece of his broken heart, had lived inside a house of mirrors. Every memory, every romantic walk, every tender touch was tainted by the haunting question, which part of her was real, and which part was a lie. The confrontation scenes between Emir and Feriha during these arcs, where words were thrown like daggers, tears flowed without restraint, and the sheer volume of their shared pain filled the room, remained some of the most raw, emotionally exhausting, and brilliantly acted masterclasses in the history of television. You could feel their hearts breaking in real time, and with every tear they shed, millions of viewers around the world shed tears right along with them. Let's be completely honest with one another, we didn't sit in front of our screens for hours, losing sleep and ignoring the rest of the world, for peace and quiet. We didn't watch Adını Feriha Koydum to see a calm, stable, predictable relationship. We watched it for the drama, and the relentless, soul-shattering, beautiful drama. Fans across Latin America, Turkey, and beyond didn't just watch the show, they lived it. They formed communities, they debated fiercely on forums, they held late-night crying sessions over a fictional character's heartbreak, and they experienced a visceral, emotional roller coaster that modern television has completely forgotten how to build. The series perfected the ultimate trope of star-crossed lovers. Every single embrace felt stolen from a hostile universe, every sweet, tender moment between Emir and Feriha was heavily tinted with the ominous, looming shadow of impending doom, and every forced separation felt like a physical tearing apart of the soul. Years after its original broadcast, long after the cameras stopped rolling, the fandom for Emir and Feriha refuses to fade into the background. It refuses to die. And why? Because in a modern world filled with sanitized, predictable, algorithmic television that plays it safe at every turn, Adını Feriha Koydum offered something terrifyingly raw, unfiltered, bleeding heart emotion. It reminded us what it feels like to care so deeply, so fiercely, about characters that their fictional agony becomes your actual reality. This landmark series did much more than just tell a localized story about a rich boy and a poor girl. It single-handedly paved the way for the global Turkish drama invasion that conquered the planet. It proved, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that human emotion, heartbreak, and the universal yearning for love transcend language barriers, geographic borders, and cultural differences. Whether you were sitting in a quiet apartment in Madrid, a bustling living room in Buenos Aires, a home in Mexico City, or anywhere else across the globe, the universal agony of young, forbidden love, the crushing judgment of high society, and the heavy expectations of family hit home with terrifying, identical force. Emir and Feriha transcended their status as mere characters on a screen, they became permanent cultural icons, living, breathing symbols of a love so fierce, so deeply flawed, and so undeniably tragic that no amount of time, no passing years, and no changing trends can ever wash them away. And that, my friends, is the explosive, untouchable formula that made Adını Feriha Koydum an eternal legend. But now, the story is in your hands, and I want to pass the microphone over to you. Looking back at this absolute, heart-wrenching emotional roller coaster, were you completely blinded and captivated by the blazing romance of Emir and Feriha, or did Feriha's endless, suffocating web of lies drive you completely, utterly insane? How did you feel when the truth finally exploded? Drop your deepest thoughts, your rawest theories, your favorite heartbreaking scenes, and your honest opinions in the comments down below right now, because I am reading and replying to every single one of you. If this deep dive made you feel that all too familiar, bittersweet ache right in the center of your chest, hit that like button with everything you've got, share this video with your fellow drama-loving friends, and subscribe to the channel right this second so you never miss another unforgettable journey into the heart of television history. Take care, stay passionate, keep feeling deeply, and I will see you very, very soon in the very next video.